Hey everybody, it's Romania Black. We're on volume 21 of Yona of the Dawn. I just got off the Discord and I told everybody that I was about to go read this, and Kotaro was like, good luck! I was like, haha. So yeah, because volume 20, volume 20 was angsty. It was angsty business. Yep, with Hak and Suwon, them both still loving each other but having a literal wall between them. Literal and figurative. And then Riri has decided that she's just going to turn herself in. She's going to get executed. Yona has hurt her leg, so she's out of commission. The dragons are all split up looking for them. Suwon's, looking for her too, and is probably going to meet up with Hak. It's going to be a thing. And the title, the cover of this volume is Yoon, which is great because we've gone through all the dragons. We've had Hak and we've had Yona, and so now it makes sense that we'd have Yoon as our cover. But also it's a very safe cover, like a very nondescript cover, so it gives us no indication of what could happen. So it's like a big mystery box. I'm just about to open the surprise box up and see what's inside. So I'm a little bit nervous because Kusanagi, ever since volume 18, volume 18 has come out on YouTube, and volume 19 on Patreon as I'm recording this. I'm recording a little bit ahead. But as I'm recording this, a lot of people in volume 18 were like, yeah, that was a tonal shift. After volume 18, Kusanagi's like, I can get gory and dark, so don't make me angry. And it's like, oh no, Kusanagi, we don't want to make you angry. But it's like, it's the craziest thing. Like the stuff with Hak and Suwon, my heart hurts for them. And I know that they love each other, but there's just all this baggage between them. But it's one of those, like, it hurts so good. It's like, ugh. As long as Yona doesn't go back to wanting Suwon, I'm fine. Because I really want to ship Hak and Yona together. And so I'm like, girl, you don't need Suwon. Suwon's clearly into Hak. It's fine. We'll just have like a three-way relationship. It's perfectly normal. But I do have a couple comments before we start. Be happy. I liked how Be Happy phrased this, that Yona went from having this fading childhood love with Suwon to recognizing this adult true love with Hak. And I was like, oh, you're speaking my language. But Be Happy had a really cool comment about how Yona had always had this crush on Suwon, and it was like this childhood love that she didn't really, she was like, oh, he's handsome and cute and blushy and all this stuff. But now that she's gotten older and she's looking at Suwon through a much more mature lens, she still, I think, cares for Suwon and loves him, but it's not like that romantic physical love, maybe. It's more like a familial spiritual love. And whereas Hak, she's slowly coming to her own with her feelings and realizing, I do kind of have this physical romantic attraction to him that I didn't know, there may be something there that wasn't there before, like one of those things. I feel like I just want to see Hak as the beast and Yona throwing snowballs at him. That's what I want to see. And then Hak has all the birds around him. That's what I want to see. But I thought Be Happy, that was a really good summarization of how I feel Yona's attractions towards Suwon waning and growing with Hak is represented. Great. And then finally, Malgium had this really cool theory, and I hadn't really thought about this, but Malgium was like, there's this theory revolving around that we see with the original dragons post volume 18, that the original dragons, they grew old. They didn't die young. They grew old and they had kids, and it was once they died and it started going to the kids and started getting passed down that the dragon lifespan got shorter. And so Malgium was saying, like, what if the reason that Zeno can't die and is truly immortal is because he never had any kids? There's nowhere for the bloodline to go, so the dragon gods are essentially just keeping him alive. And yeah, we can tie it to his power, but who's to say that if he did have a kid, like, the power wouldn't wane and the kid would gain the power of immortality, and that the more times you, like, stab him or slice him, he gets more and more invincible. Like, that's really, the power is really invincibility and, like, quick healing and everything, and we can tie that to immortality. But I thought that was a really cool theory, that maybe Zeno is still around because there's just nowhere for the yellow bloodline to go to. Whereas with the other three dragons, they had children who had children who had children, and all dispersed out in the village. And so that bloodline is there, even if they're not a direct descendant. Like, Kija is a direct descendant from the last white dragon, but Jeha and Sheena are not. But they're still, even Kusanagi said in one of the previous volumes, they're distantly related to the users, to the previous dragon warriors, to Garo and Ao. So yeah, that could be. I don't know, until Kusanagi tells us otherwise, right? But I thought those were really interesting comments, and I'm glad you all made them. So yeah, I've been really excited for volume 21. I've taken actually nearly a week off. I've had to get some other recordings done early, so I'm finally getting around to this one. So I've taken about a week off from volume 20. Oh, but it's still fresh in my mind. Oh, Hak and Suwon's moments. I had recorded the stage play between now and then, so. But anyway, I'm ready to start volume 21. It's storming outside, and it's thunderstorming, and I got a cup of coffee. I'm like, I'm ready to go. Very much so. So let's not waste any more time. We're going to start volume 21 of Yona of the Dawn, and we're going to start that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Oh my god. Oh my god. So yeah, that was the quickest volume ever. Oh my god, that was the fastest volume I've ever read. I mean, it was mostly just shots. Mostly just images of them. Oh my god. Oh, y'all, this volume, it's finally happening. We're slowly getting there. We're slowly getting there with Hak and Yona. They're slowly realizing that maybe there may be something there that wasn't there before that was there all along. Okay, so going toward you is chapter 118. Okay, I skipped that first page, going toward you, but that's the chapter. Oh, this volume was shorter. That's why it took less time. It was only 177 pages. The volumes have usually been 200 pages or like 196. So this volume was like a whole chapter shorter, but yet at the same time, it was still 6 chapters. So these chapters were shorter than they usually were. Interesting. Yeah, this was a much quicker volume than usual, but I'm guessing that, I don't know if that was just the timing and scheduling of Kusanagi at the time, but this was a much quicker volume than it has been in the past. But man, so Judo and Suwon and Hak, and Yona and Hak, and Suwon has the hair clip. Suwon has the hairpin. He took it with him. He took the hairpin back, and Yona thought that she just lost it. I feel like that's such a metaphor of him taking the hairpin back from her, and her accepting that it was gone. So in the last couple volumes, she had accepted that the hairpin had been lost. And I feel like that is some kind of like a metaphorical thing of now in Suwon's case, he took the hairpin back. So I'm assuming, at some point that Suwon is going to meet back up with Yona and Hak. It's going to happen eventually. It's just going to happen. At this point, there's so much left unsaid. They're going to have to talk at some point again. And I feel like Suwon is going to bring up the hairpin and be like, oh, I found this. I'm going to give it back to you. And I wonder if Yona's going to say, I don't want it. Either if she says, I don't want it, or if she's like, thank you, but I'm not going to wear it. I wonder if it's going to come back up again, because I feel like Yona taking the hairpin, or for thinking that she forgot and lost the hairpin, is like her first step towards moving on from Suwon and still caring about him, but moving on from him and accepting that she loves Hak. Accepting her feelings for Hak. Because even though I feel like Yona at a young age, when they were children, her and Suwon was always there for her. Like he said, he'd wipe her tears away and he'd always be there for her and sleep next to her. But as they grew older and Suwon kind of got into this mindset of what he had to do to take the throne and save Koka, he drifted away from that idea of him and Yona being together in that sense, and instead took more stock in his duty and what he had to do and what he felt was more important. Whereas Hak, who started out with duty, has drifted more towards caring about Yona and keeping her safe. So it's kind of like Hak and Suwon started in different places, and they've slowly moved to the other side of where they started. And I feel like Hak has determined himself not to leave Yona's side, and Suwon has left her side and did. He chose that choice he made, distanced himself from Yona, whereas Hak's choices brought him closer to her. So it's funny how they've ended up going separate ways, and I'm going to be curious to see how them as characters and their relationship with Yona changes. We'll talk about it when we get to it, but man, I could not have asked for that arc to end any better. That was I was like, I wondered how Kusanagi was going to deal with it. She did well. So we get the whole thing with the Yura and everything, and we have our first mangaka note. Hello, this is Mizuho Kusanagi. Thank you very much for picking up Volume 21. The pre-order special edition of Volume 21 Japan comes with the original anime DVD of Zeno Arc Part 1. I'm really looking forward to it. 10/31 is the final day to pre-order Volume 22, which includes Part 2. Kaya makes an appearance too, so I hope you'll check it out. Pre-ordering is the only way to get it, so make sure you do so at a bookstore or online. The Nation of Sei arc wraps up in this volume. When I'm drawing, I usually struggle with something or other, but I got to draw the Wind Tribe, and that was a lot of fun. So she's like, I struggle with every volume, but I got to do something I really like in this one. You can tell Kusanagi loves the Wind Tribe because their chemistry and their banter is just, it was so great, this arc. I just love that. I love that Moondock keeps like throwing the bombs back at Hawk, being like, quit throwing bombs. And he's like, you're the one throwing them at me. And he's taking the glaive that is Taeyu's and using it to bat the bombs at the fort. It's great. Oh my God. And I like that Moondock's mad because he's like, you let Yona get kidnapped. And Moondock doesn't know how much Yona has grown either. So he doesn't know that she's pretty much capable of taking care of herself at this point. But he's like, I'm not by myself. The guys with me are coming back to get her. And then I like that Hyundai's like, you have friends? And he's like, I wouldn't call them friends. It's like, no, they're friends, Hawk. They're literally family. And he's like, they're not family. It's like, no, they are. And I love that Moondock's like, you forged a family you can trust. That's good to hear. And Hawk's like he doesn't want to admit that they're friends and family, but they are. Yeah. And then General Judo, we'll talk about him. God, he's got some pent up emotions too, right? Oh, buddy. That the Thunder Beast is what he's most afraid of. And I mean, granted, in volume 16, in that volume, Hawk looked pretty terrifying and he beat the snot out of Judo. So Judo rightfully is scared of Hawk and terrified of what he can do. But our dude has calmed down and he's slowly coming to accept that he may have to work with Suwon in the future despite everything that's happened. But there clearly needs to be a talk at some point. But we're not getting it anytime soon, I feel. No, because I like that. And I love this. I could just imagine this animated when they're like, really, we released the slaves. I heard. We did this. I heard. And he's like, Suwon is here. And he's like, I know. And I like Kija's like, are you okay about all this? And he's like, let's just focus on saving her. And I love that Kija and Sheena are like, he's way different from how he was, like 3 volumes ago. And yeah, Hawk has undergone some growth. Our boy has come he's used Jonas as an inspiration to come to the conclusion that there's nothing he can do about this. He just needs to accept it and go. And I love that, right? And so, yeah, then when those guys showed up, I was like, okay, Jaeha, because I said in the last volume, like, Jaeha and Zeno are going to go to Yona and rescue her from those troops. They're going to show up and rescue her. And they did. But man, Zeno, so can we talk about Zeno and the eye thing? Can we talk about that real quick? Because I like that Jaeha's been like, okay, I've been listening, and you mentioned your powers give you abilities that are somewhat similar to mine. Kija's like, you're super strong and you can jump really high, but so do you have like Sheena's ability too? And Zeno, like in his darkest of dark humor, is like, oh, I gouged my eyes out once and they've become more fragile since then. Yeah. Jaeha's like, how do I respond to that? You gouged your own eyes out. There's something so dark and twisted about Zeno in a way, like him just saying nonchalantly that he gouged his own eyes out of self-harm, right? And Jaeha being like, I don't know what to do with that. Because someone else pointed out, like, in the YouTube comments with volume 18, the fact that he sat by the body of someone he loved and watched them decay to bones, the mental state you would be in after that, like, Zeno's been through some shit. And I don't even want to think about his mental state right now. Like, him reverting to, like, childlike Zeno is the only way he stays sane. Yeah, just insanity. And when he says let go, and he just crumples into this mess. Like, his leg is broken, his arms are broken. And when he looks up, like, his eyeball has popped out of its socket. Kusanagi, like just the gore of it. And of course they do the sword on top of him, but he's already his body's turned to scales, and he's like cut the sword in half. Oh my God. Like, yeah, he literally jumped to hurt himself so he'd be immortal and be like a shield. But like his eyes popped and everything. Nope. And then, yeah, he's like popped the eye back in and it's bloody there. Oh my God. Zeno, honey. Like, that's just awful. And he feels the pain, but then it lingers and it goes away. And then I love that Jeha, when he sees Yona, he's like, are you okay? And she's so disheveled. And here's the thing, Yona has been strong, like in a great place since meeting the dragons. They've not seen Yona in like volume 1 through 3. They've not seen her in like early episodes of the anime version of Yona, where she was like feeble and desperate and terrified and anguished. And now she's back to that anguish stage. And Jaeha's like, oh my God, what do I do? Like, I gotta embrace. I love that he embraces her and hugs her, and he's like trying to console her. And he just thinks she's reached her limit. And again, you all have pointed out that Zeno calls them Green Dragon and Young Lady so that he doesn't have to get so attached, right? But Zeno being like running after. I just love that Zeno. We'll talk about him and Suwon when we get to them. That's an interesting point in this story. We'll talk about that. And so I do get a little sad because I think Jeha misunderstands her, because she says, I wish I could fly right to the people that I love. And Jeha's like, I'll serve as your legs until you no longer have use for me. And I feel like Jeha and Hak are so similar, because I feel like Jeha loves her, but at this point in time, maybe he doesn't think that she loves him back in the same way as she does Hak and Riri, because he's a dragon warrior, but she does. But I think he misunderstands her, and he wants to be a tool for Yona just like Hak does. But maybe Jeha's a little bit, I don't know if Jeha's jealous that Yona is now seeing Hak as more than that, because he views himself so similar to Hak. I don't know, but I feel bad for Jeha in that moment. And then I will give Junji this. He was like getting the bow out, gonna fight to save his daughter. Like, this guy's come a long way from the Water Tribe arc. That is for sure. And so then, yeah, they go there and they go through all the junk, and we see lots of different things there. There's swords and trinkets and everything, but he sees the box and the hairpin, and he keeps the hairpin. And the look in his eyes, he's like, she kept this all this time. So clearly she cares about. So it's Suwon realizing that moment that clearly they care about him still, because otherwise she would have destroyed the hairpin. If she didn't care about him, why'd she keep it all this time? Right? So he's realizing that she does still probably care about him. But yeah. So this guy, Kushibi, he made a bold move, Cotton. Bold move, Cotton. We'll see if it pans out. Yeah, thought that he brought 1,000 troops, no problem. And then like a dozen guys kill 1,000 troops or defeat 1,000 troops. Seems legit, right? They're monsters. But man, Riri, I give props to Riri. She was like facing the noose and was like up till the very end trying to protect Ayura and all the other slaves. Like, Riri, my girl, I freaking love her. She's great. All right, we got the second mangaka note. About turning the Zeno arc into an OAD. I had an offer to create 2 OADs, so my editor and I discussed which storyline to do. I initially asked Perot to do the contents of volumes 17 and 18, but a 30-minute anime can only cover about 2 30-page chapters of the manga, so cramming volumes of 17 and 18 into 2 episodes would be quite difficult. I was prepared to make it a summary, but Perot suggested it might be better to animate Zeno's past from volume 18, and we decided to go with that. I never expected to see Zeno's past animated. I'm so very happy. I'm glad I put so much effort into that storyline. Yeah, no. Honestly, of all the OVAs to animate, Zeno's past that one was worth it. That one was really, really good. I liked that a lot. Good on you. Although seeing chapter 100 animated would have been pretty terrifying, but I like what they decided to do. But yeah, and then Riri, she admits that she killed someone. She's like, I stabbed someone, and she's like, admits all that to try to buy Ayura some time to escape. And girl, she's so strong. I love Riri. And Suwon looking at her, oh, I love it, right? And then Suwon being like him hearing it. I think that Suwon could end up with Riri. Like, if he was to have like a queen and they really like pressed him to it, I feel like he could end up with Riri. But right now, I was shipping them towards the Water Tribe arc because I thought it would be fun because there's parallels with like Yona and Hak and Riri and Suwon, but there's clearly, I don't see any romantic stuff between them. Not yet, anyway, right? He kind of admits that she's somebody he cares about, but not romantically. No. And so then, yeah, and he doesn't, old Kushibi does not realize that the king and the generals are there. And Jungji's face when he sees that Lady Riri's by the noose, like Tetra and Jungji, they look terrified, as do Suwon and Judo. And then Hak seeing that there's somebody in the center. And I love that Hak is like, he maybe suspects that Yona isn't there, but he still wants to save Riri. Like, that's such growth for Hak, because Hak at the very early part of this manga and anime would be like, if it's not Yona, I'm not worried about it. But now he's like, no, we have other people to save. And God, I'm sorry, but you know what? Hak and Yona are like an OTP to me, but you know who else I ship? Hak and damn Suwon. Hak and Suwon, I can ship them all day. I'm like, oh my God, like this is star-crossed lovers, like them staring at each other from afar. Yep. He's like, Lady Riri, Ayura. Yeah, and I love that Taeju like has the spear ready, and Hongdae is like, don't you? He doesn't even have to use the spear because Hongdae is watching over him. The Wind Tribe, mwah, our boys, I friggin' love them. They're great. And so Kushibi doesn't realize what he's done. No. And so then I love chapter 120, Reaching You. That one's so good. Chapter 120 is great. And them all fighting. And so Judo admits, he's like, nothing scares me more than the Thunder Beast in the world. Nothing in the world scares him more than Hak. Because Hak, at the moment, Hak is legitimately the only threat to Suwon. That's it. And that's what Judo's afraid of. That Judo knows what they've done to Yona and Hak. They know how much they betrayed them. And Judo's like, if it were me, I'd probably try to kill your highness too. So he's like, he knows what's at stake. And he thinks that they're just going to be hell-bent on revenge. But we as the audience know that now, I don't think so. I also love that shot of Hyundai and Taeyu. Like the two of them back to back. It's such a badass shot. I freaking love it. It's great. But Hak. And I love that Hak is, for a split second, Hak is worried about where Yona is. But then he's like, no, it's fine. I can leave it to them. That's such growth for Hak. He's like, I can leave it to them. I can let them worry about it. I can stay here. And then Hak is so badass too, where he's like, I'll just take this off your hands. Like, But Riri headbutting the soldier, knocking him off the platform, trying to save all the troops, saying she's not going to go down without a fight. She tells him to start fighting back. And then the guy's going to hang her. And at that moment, Yona shows up with Jeha. And she's like, somebody save Riri. And Suwon's like, I can make the shot and cut the noose. But then Judo's like, who's going to catch her? He's like, someone has to catch her, even if you make it. And at that moment, like, Suwon and Hak locking eyes and looking at one another and being like, I'm going to do this. Are you going to do this? And for the split second, they both put aside, and Hak gritting his teeth, they put aside everything against each other to save Riri. This girl that they know. Oh my God. And they let her go with the noose on there. He shoots the arrow and breaks it. And Hak grabs her and saves her. Like, they put aside their differences to save somebody that they both care about and that they know Yona cares about. And Suwon being like, oh my God, he did it. And Hak being like, I did it. And everybody, oh. And then Yona staring at both of them. That shot at the end of chapter 120 where Yona stares and there's both Hak and Suwon on either side. And she cuts back to that vision from the volumes earlier where she was like, when they were on looking at the battlefield, she's like, if I hadn't left the palace, Hak and Suwon would have been on the same side. And her saying, I was mesmerized, Hak and Suwon, if you two had wound up on the same side, would there be any limit to what you could accomplish? So why did things wind up the way that they are? Like, that's a big question, because at this point, it's like, yeah, Yona with Hak and Suwon are unstoppable. Like, they're just such an unstoppable force. But because of King Il's death and everything that's happened, it's put a barrier between them. And I feel like saving Riri was the first crack in that barrier. Like, maybe that wall can come down between them. If they can work together to save someone they all care about, maybe that wall can come down. Like, I feel like this was the first, like, little titch into it, like the first crack. And her being like, she's glad that they're all safe. And I love that Yona says, I want to go to Hak right now. Like, Suwon's not even in the conversation at this point. It's, she wants Hak. And he's like, I'll bring him to you. And then I love that Gunte saves Hak too. Gunte saves Hak from the soldier to get Riri. Because one, Gunte wants to play matchmaker for Suwon and Riri. But also, Gunte respects Hak. He respects him on the battlefield. And he's like, you just saved this girl's life. Okay. And I love that he's like, get out of here, random slave. Leave. Mm-hmm. And then Kushibi's like, I guess Kazugumo is the king of Sei. And so Kushibi starts to freak out because these like half a dozen men stopped all of his troops and saved Riri. Okay. Really thunderous. All right. There was a stage show of Yona of the Dawn back in March 2016. We watched that. That was what I just reacted to. Yes. A stage show. I was excited to see how my comic would translate to the stage. Yona and her friends, Suwon, Riri, and Riri's attendants are also lively and cute. Hyo and his gangs are so suspicious. I was completely hooked on the charm of watching a live stage show. It was all so electric and with everyone's desire to entertain the audience, and I was so delighted. Seeing how hard the actors worked, even after the show ended, made me want to go see other shows. To everyone involved, thank you. Oh, that's cool. What great timing. We saw the stage show right around the time this volume came out. That's awesome. And then he tells him to kill him, but Moondog coming in there to be like, nah, not my grandson. And he's like, you old man. And then Tetra and Ayura being badass, be like everyone came together to rescue them and rescue Riri. Like, it was just such, like, the teamwork was amazing. All of these tribes coming together, being united. It was amazing. And I love that Moondog says, whoever you are, unfamiliar kid, thank you for saving Junji's daughter. Like, they all pretend like they don't know him so he can escape, right? And he gives him some candy. Oh my God. And he's like, you should scram, slave. I love it. And then Jeha shows up. And I'm sorry, but Hak, when he's like, she's fine. And he just gives, in the middle of a battle, Hak just gives Jeha a hug. Like, just an unironic hug. And Jeha's like, what did I just experience? And he says, it's a greeting. Like, hey. And he says, Yona wants to see you right away. And he says, liar. And Jeha says what we're all thinking. He likes to feed the unrequited part of his love. Yeah, Hak is just, he's so bound and determined that his love is unrequited. We're like, Hak, dude, wake up. She likes you. And I think he's starting to wake up, slowly but surely, right? And she's starting to wake up that maybe he likes her too. Finally. And so then, yeah, Kushibi, I love that line. I'm suddenly seeing more clearly all the soldiers who were just here. Where did they go? Like, all the soldiers have slowly been cleared out to where you can see the battlefield. Oh, that's such a good line. And it's just all of them standing around with the bodies of all the soldiers around them. What have I invited in? Oh, I love it. I freaking love it. And even like Kushibi's face is like all distorted and has like the anime, like the eyes exaggerated. And then Suwon's like, I'm the ruler of Koka. Suwon. He's like, yeah, those are my 5 generals too. This name. And he considers, I don't think he was going to kill Kushibi, but he threatens him. And so then Kushibi like submits to him. And he's like, well, basically, you're going to tear down this fort, and then your king's going to come talk with me, and we're going to hold you hostage until then. He's like, what you saw today was a mere fraction of Koka's strength. So basically, this was not only to tear down the fort, not only to save Riri, not only to help Yona and the others by and by, but it was also for Suwon to say, look, there were only like a dozen of us, and we took care of 1,000 of your men. Don't mess with us. Like, it was just a display of power. And then I love that Hak was so hell-bent on revenge with Suwon, doesn't even care about him. Doesn't care about Kushibi, doesn't care about Suwon, nothing. He only cares about going to see Yona. And then runs to her side. Husbando. Y'all. And then Suwon was going to walk away. He was going to be like, I'm done here. We saved Riri. Let's go. But then Judo says, are you going to let that man walk out of here? And Judo holding the grudge. You said you cut him down the next time you saw him. And Suwon's like, I did say that, but... And then I love that Guntae's like, yeah, the battle's over. Leave him alone. He's like, the one we should be most wary of is right there. And Guntae's like, he just helped save Riri. Yeah, I get how you feel, but just for today. And then he's like, and Judo is terrified of Hak. Terrified of him. He's like, he'll be he's the biggest threat to Suwon. And he's like, I'll kill him if I have to. And I love that Hawk's just like, I love that Hak doesn't argue and he's just like, what of it? But it's Suwon that's like, stand down. And he says, have you still not gotten past your feelings? He's like, that's not it. He's like, everyone is aiming at you. He's like, we just united the entire kingdoms together. We just had this great battle. You're going to mess it up. And so, and then I like that Judo's like, well, what are those guys? And he's like, apparently they're dragon warriors. Evidently. Yeah. And then I like Guntae's like, And then I love, Judo is so fascinating because he's terrified of Hak. He knows he doesn't blame Hak for how he feels. He thinks Hak should feel like that towards Suwon. And that's why he's terrified of him. But then he looks at Yona and he has to turn away. Because he's known Hak and Yona since they were kids. And he was once the protector of them. And now he can't be their protector. And I just love how Hak is like, he looks at them, but then he looks back at Yona. And then says, I'm fine. Our Thunder Beast has come so far. So far. And that's when Zeno runs into Suwon. He's like, oh, I overshot. And he's like, don't move. He's like, oh, everything's fine. And then he says, wait, so he remembers him from earlier when they bumped into each other. He's like, oh, it's the king. Why are you here? And he's like, to save Lady Riri. Looks like Koka has say in the palm of its hands without a single casualty. And he's like, are you one of the dragons? The white dragon told me. Oh, yep, you're right. I see. This question, do you want the 4 dragon warriors? He's like, huh? No, not at all. And so Zeno's off. So, that line, do you want the 4 dragon warriors? Do you want them? Okay. So, he called Zeno the king. He said, so here's the prophecy was, what was the prophecy? That was the question. The prophecy was something, I'd have to go back and reread the prophecy from Yona of the Dawn. Let's see here. I don't want to look it up. Because I'll be spoiled. I'm not going to look it up. But I thought the prophecy may have the king and the red dragon separated. So, because it said the red dragon would appear at dawn, but it said the sword and the shield of the king would be awakened, right? So Yona may not be the king. The king may be Suwon, and Yona and Hak may be the sword and the shield. Or it may be that Hak is the sword. It may be that Hak is either the sword and the shield, and someone else is the sword and the shield, and then Yona is the red dragon, and Suwon is the king. Because here's my theory. After a lot of you said that Suwon kind of looks like Kiryu, and I agree, I feel like Yona is the reincarnation of Hiryu, but she's not the Crimson King's bloodline. I feel like Suwon is the blood descendant of Hiryu, right? I feel like at this point that Suwon, through his mother's side, is the blood descendant of Hiryu, but he is not the red dragon. He's not the Crimson Dragon King. He's not the dragon god reincarnated. It's Yona that's that. The dragons all follow Yona, so that Yona has the tie-in to the Crimson Dragon, but by blood, Suwon is related to the actual King Hiryu. So, when Zeno asks, do you want the 4 dragon warriors? And he says, no. Then Zeno's like, okay. He's like, so basically if Suwon had said yes, Zeno's like, okay, we'll follow you instead. I don't know. Or maybe Hak is a sword and Zeno's the shield and Yona is the red dragon. I don't know. I just feel like I feel like it's integral to Suwon that, because he says, well, bye now, young king, and then runs away, and he calls him king. So I feel like Suwon and Yona have the potential to coexist as rulers of Koka, Yona as the embodiment of the red dragon, and Suwon as having the birthright of King Hiryu. And then Hak would be with Yona, and see, it could all work out. It could all work out. See, it could all work out. It could be fine. Suwon could give the throne back to Yona. Yona could marry Hak. They could stay there. Suwon could stay there as their like royal advisor, stay there as like advisor, like strategist to the king and the queen. All work out. Dragons with them. It's great. All work out. Everything's great. We've solved everything. Problem solved. We just got to go over a couple kind of communication barriers. It's fine. Manga solved. We've reached the end. But I do think that is something. I think Zeno knows that Suwon is related by blood to Hiryu, but he is not the Crimson Dragon King. He's not who the dragons follow, right? It's Yona that the dragons follow. And so I feel like it's important that Suwon chooses to rule by the power of people and not the power of gods, because like we've talked about in previous volumes, I feel like that the previous kings of Koka were relying, the ones before Zeno left, the previous kings of Koka and the previous descendants of Kiryu were relying upon the power of the gods and dragon warriors to rule their kingdom. And Suwon's saying, no, we're not going to rely upon the power of gods. We're going to rely on the power of people. And so I feel like that Zeno's saying, well, if you wanted to, you could use us. But if you're not, maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. That's just a theory. I don't want it confirmed or deconfirmed, but that's my theory so far, that Suwon is actually the blood descendant, but Yona is the spiritual descendant, if that makes sense. I feel like the physical, which would make sense because Suwon's all about the power of the people, and if he is a descendant by blood, that would make sense. But if Yona is the spiritual descendant of Hiryu, like the red dragon has embodied her and possessed her in this reincarnation, that's more aligned to like the spiritual side of it, like the dragon warriors and the dragon gods, whereas Suwon is representative of like the physical human side of it. I don't know. But yeah, it's that shot of him watching Zeno run back is so interesting. And him running back to Hak and all of them, and Suwon's left alone. He's like, Zeno's back, young lady. And Hak hugging Zeno. Like Hak hugging him, knowing that he helped protect Yona. So sweet. And yeah. So then, yeah, and of course Kija's crying because Yona's injured. Of course Kija's crying. He's like, this is only our fault. But yeah, of course Kija's crying. And then I like how Jaeha tries to tease, and he's like, oh, Hak, give Yona a hug too. And she's like, stop, don't. And it's not a joke to her anymore. Like, he's like, why do I suddenly feel like my whole heart's being wrenched? Because he's connected to her feelings. He's like, oh. And so, yeah, she has a nightmare, and then she wakes up, and then she goes out to find Hak. We've got another manga note. How they went about becoming slaves. All right, we're going to say for an undercover investigation. I call it Operation Attract Slavers. No one's going to kidnap a man with such a huge weapon or someone wearing a mask. Sheena's sword is just barely passable. So, do I have to leave my concealed weapons? As Jaeha's taking off his clothes. They wouldn't want a weirdo who enjoyed stripping either. I guess I can't tell you to remove your arm. And so Hak's glaive and Sheena's mask were left behind. Oh, I hope they go back and get them. I'm assuming they will. But yeah, so this whole scene, this whole chapter, what chapter is this called? Is it still the same chapter as before? I think it is. Damn. It's a long chapter. But then her and Hak together, and she said, I wanted to touch you. And what she meant, so chapter 123, Inexpressible Feelings, like, she said she wanted to touch him, and what she meant was like just to be close to him. She didn't mean it like that. And Hak's like, wait, what? And of course she's like, oh my gosh. So these two lovebirds, they're so in love, and I love this chapter because it's them slowly realizing that, wait, maybe the other, and they do communicate in this chapter a bit. They do communicate, like the whole thing about her smelling The whole thing about her smelling and her finally being like, I smell, and I love Hawk's reaction being like, that's what you're worried about? I repeat, that's what you're worried about? He's like, you're fine, you don't smell. And she's like, but I do. Like, it's just, God, I love this chapter because it's finally them talking and he's been like, we've been through so much, it's fine. And that's kind of the thing that makes their relationship so beautiful is that they've, like, he picked leeches off her naked body like 3 episodes in, right? They've been through so much and he's like, you and I, and it's not one of those like, they're like best friends. They formed this bond with each other. They're like best friends that have slowly gotten to know each other over time. And they're like, we can be ourselves around each other. It's okay. And I feel like any other relationship wouldn't be like that, but theirs is so special like that. And then him pulling in to hug her. And she's like, you don't have to endure this. And he's like, I'm not enduring anything. Like he's trying to say, no, I like you. It's fine. Ugh. And of course she tells him not to put his face by her hair, but he doesn't listen because that's like his most seductive thing he could possibly do. And he's like, my ears aren't working well right now. And it's like, God, you could not be any more attractive, Hawk. You really couldn't. Mm-hmm. But yeah. And then he imitates Zeno. I want to hear Hawk's voice actor imitating Zeno. And he's like, you smell so nice, young lady. And her response, imitating Zeno will not help, young fellow. Their flirting is just, it's giving me life. I can't. And the look on Hawk when he says, you're awfully cool, you know, like just these two, this power couple could not be, I just want them to recognize their feelings for one another. And then Hawk's like, you suddenly look like some girl. And she's like, I am a girl. She's like, you can never be too beautiful. And then she thinks back to when she was concerned with just her looks and her unmanageable hair and trying to spend time with Suwon. And so we'll talk about that. But first, there's one more mangaka note. This time around, I finished my storyboard unusually fast. We haven't had a Hak and Yona story in a while, but I was having fun drawing, and there were earthquakes in the middle of the night, and I had to stop working. It was really difficult to get back to drawing again. On March 13th, there were level 3 to 6 quakes all throughout the night. My house was a mess. I stood outside until morning. Thankfully, my family and home got through it okay, but some of my friends weren't so lucky. There were people all over Kumamoto who were injured. Right now, I'm eating produce from Kumamoto to support the recovery effort. Thank you for all the messages and letters of encouragement. Wow. But yeah, so we talk about the difference between her liking someone and loving someone. She's like, talking to Suwon always made me so happy. I enjoyed it so much, and I looked forward to it. But when I went out with Hawk, it's a little different. I feel like I can't really breathe, and I get too nervous to even say anything. But I still want to be right there with him. How have I been acting in front of him? Yeah. And so it's that difference between really liking someone and loving someone. Like she gets nervous around Hawk. She doesn't know how to feel. She doesn't want to do the wrong thing around him. She gets nervous. Like that's love. Yeah, because but you want to be with him. And she sees him wearing the necklace that she gave him. And he's like, what matters most is that you're safe. Ugh. And I love that he says, I shouldn't have left you with that stranger. And she's like, it's no one's fault. You'd suffer more being wary of people who are kind to you. Because she's like, just think back to how you were, Hawk. You didn't want to trust anybody else watching over me. But look how much you've gained by trusting these people. She's like, I don't want you to lose that with anyone. It just didn't work out with Subaru. And then, no matter how many times I'm betrayed, I'll never ever stop trusting you. That love between them. And I love her like grabbing the necklace. And she's like, I want to get to a point where I can free you from having to follow my father's orders. But when I free you, I don't want you to go. And he won't. I think she doesn't realize that he's not going to leave her because he loves her, damn it. But at least in this chapter, they have acknowledged that there is something there. That they both have acknowledged that, okay, something's happening here. What is it? And then we finally get the bonus chapter, which is from the OVA. That a lot of people were like, oh, that OVA chapter was from volume 21. I was like, and here we are. So yeah, I like that Jaeha, and I love Kijo when he's like, I won't do anything crazy, and his fist gets huge. And then Jaeha's out with one drink. Sheena can drink a lot, but he's scary when he drinks, so he's a scary drunk. And this is really sad that Zeno, I love that Zeno, when he drinks and he seems like he's getting drunk, and then he just smiles. Like that Zeno creepy smile. It's a very creepy smile. Sometimes when Zeno smiles, it's very creepy. That's creepy when he's like, I'll never get wasted. Ha ha ha. And it's just like pain. He feels tipsy for a second and then he goes back to being normal. And it's terrifying, but Hak and Jeha are like, he's the strongest drinker in the world, undefeatable. He's like, we don't count you in this. You don't count. But, and she's like, when it comes to you, and Zeno and Jeha know. They know everybody knows Yona likes Hak except for Hak. And everybody knows Hak likes Yona except for Yona. So it's just like, when will you two confess to each other, please? Please confess. I'm just like, please let your feelings go, please. But yeah. He's like, oh, I'll carry her if you don't want to forfeit. And Hak's like, screw you, I'm forfeiting the game. And then Zeno just goes to sleep. And so Jeha ends up technically the winner, but Yoon is the winner because he stays up the longest and does all the work for them. So while they're all hungover and everything, he's like, I cooked you breakfast, did your laundry, and fixed everything. What else do you want from this boy genius? And they're like, oh my God. Oh. This volume was fantastic. It's so good. It went by too quickly. It went by too fast. But I could not be happier with how it concluded, with Riri standing up and being badass. I hope next volume we tie back to Riri and what they all did after they left, because we clearly know what happened with Yona and them. And so I hope we go back and see what the aftermath with Riri and Jungji and Suwon and all of them. I'm excited to see what that will be like. And then I'm curious to know what we're going to do next. Like it's funny because this is the first time in a long time that we've not had like a continuation, like since the Fire Tribe. It's been like, okay, we did Fire Tribe. Now we're going to do Water Tribe. Water Tribe, we're going to go and get Zeno's backstory. Zeno's backstory, now we're going to go rescue Riri and Yona. So it's been like boom, 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 arc since like volume 10. And for the first time in like 11 volumes, I don't know where we're going. So that's exciting. I'm excited about that. But I'm like, where do we go to from here? But I cannot sing enough praises for chapters like 119 through 123. They're so freaking good. The scenes with Yona and Hak and Suwon. Yona and Hak, Suwon and Hak. Cheers, Kusanagi, because that was an amazing volume. That was way too short and went by way too quickly. But, so good. Oh, yeah. I'm very curious what's going to happen next. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts. I hope y'all enjoyed this reaction and discussion. But yeah, I'm super excited for volume 22 now because it'll be like going into unknown territory. What will happen? We don't know. But I'm really excited for it. So in the meantime, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And yeah, I will be back next week with volume 22 of Yona of the Dawn. Bye.